Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Wargaming. I'm your host Dom Maidlow, and today I have a few guests on this episode. And first up, I have Naseem. Hi, Naseem.
Hi, how are you, Dom? You all right?
I'm good. I'm excited for this episode because I've got you and a couple of others on talking about LVO because you are flying across the pond to fight to the death in the biggest Warhammer tournament we have in the world. So it's just gonna be good to chat to you today about that. So for those of you that don't know Naseem, and Naseem recently has been everywhere having interviews, and his team as well is kind of famous for being the up and comer of the year, even though I've been aware of your team for quite a while. But so Naseem is currently ranked 8th in the world, and think how many Warhammer players that are across the globe. He is ranked 8th, and in the UK he's ranked 4th. So he is absolutely smashing this season. So I want to say, first of all, congratulations, because it's nearly the end of the season and you're this high already. And one would hope that going to LVO would secure maybe a higher ranking than that.
Fingers crossed. There's also a lot of good players going to LVO, both from the UK side and the American side. So who knows? It's all up for grabs, especially when an event so big.
Yeah. And so Naseem plays for Warmasters, which is a UK team, and they're currently 3rd at the moment in the world rankings, 9 points over Vanguard Tactics. And I would say, if I hadn't
Gonna stay that way.
If I hadn't come second on the weekend, we wouldn't have been above you. So you're lucky.
Ifs and buts.
Yeah. So Naseem, for those of you that don't know what LVO is, can you just quickly explain what LVO is?
Yeah, I mean, it's my first time going there, but essentially LVO is, I guess you could say, almost like the Mecca of 40k. At least is the way it's been treated over the last just as long as the competitive scene has been established, even non-competitively. Big event super major that's happened every single year in Vegas, and gathering everybody from around the globe, from Australia, the UK, and there's a lot of people from the UK going this year, and essentially is just I guess you could say, the season finisher, but also a season starter for the ITC, run by essentially the Frontline Gaming Group there. But yeah, I mean, if I had to put it into perspective, it's just a really big tournament.
Yeah, it's absolutely humongous. Last year they had around 800 players, which is absolutely humongous when you think about where you'd actually have to put all those people in a big hall. And me thinking of London, you'd have to get an arena or something like that ready for that.
Too expensive.
That level of event. And over in the UK, obviously we've got the LGT, which you did very well again this year, so congratulations on that. And it's kind of been a great year for 40k. We've had the final books have all come out, and we've seen last year was really all about kind of Drukhari. It kind of was that's what it was. It was Drukhari and Admech, which was stealing the show for a long time. Then towards the end of the season, they got toned down. We had Nids come out with their big bugs, and Orcs as well with the buggies. Then this year it's just been a complete roller coaster. And I felt like towards the summer it got like a really good meta, and then we're kind of going into the last 6 months of 2020. Sorry, the first 6 months of 2023, and it looks to be an insane meta. So I bet so LVO is the Las Vegas Open, and if you don't know, they're not using the new rules, are they? They're not using the new faction updates.
No, they decided to essentially go forward with the previous rules that they had in place. So they won't be using the new points, they won't be using the new data slate or the new missions. So essentially they're ending the season with Nephilim, and with the start of the new ITC season, you'll have arksofomen there, at least for their events.
Yeah, and I always do wonder that if because of this huge tournament in future years, maybe Games Workshop will reconsider kind of releasing such a big data slate close to such a big tournament, or at least give everyone enough time to prepare, because it's kind of like if it got released now, the list you'd be taking would be totally different to what you're taking now. So without revealing all your tricks and how to beat you and everything, so what are you taking to LVO?
So to LVO, I'll essentially be taking a very similar list to my Leicester list that I took I think just last month. It'll be Tau, Farsight Enclaves, of course. It will shockingly enough have planes. It will have crisis suits. It
Yeah.
will have riptides, and it will have commanders. Shockingly enough, but yeah, it's a very similar list to it. So some minor tweaks. I think changes are like within 100 points of each other, so radiant
Yeah.
changes. But that's the list I've just decided to stick with. One I've got the most practice with Tau, and one I feel most comfortable going into with the majority of the matchups.
Yeah, and I think it's an absolutely solid list because I was at an event this weekend, Twisted Warp, and there was almost 3 copy and paste of your list at the event, and I managed to play one of them. And I've got to say, it's a very good list. And so with that sort of big suits and kind of using the Tau offensive output to kind of control the game tempo, how like what are would you say your matchups you're most looking forward to there?
I think for me, matchups I look most forward to are it's not necessarily like faction matchups, like in the traditional sense where Space Marines, I love to play the Space Marines, etc., or like whichever way. For me, any army that is not able to have the speed or damage to essentially counteract how I play. So Tau, for example, very flexible, very maneuverable armies. Crisis suits can move 18. Reptiles can fire and fade. So can the crisis suits. Characters can't be targeted. A lot of redeploys, a lot of shenanigans. Any army that has essentially the tools and utility in order to deal with that is an army that I'll respect. So an army like Thousand Suns, for example, with their teleports everywhere, with their super Achilles characters as well, and essentially not just that, but with their double moves, also very tricksy armies I need to look out for, including Gene Stealer Colt as well. Very tricky armies with a lot of utility are the armies that are traditionally going to be on my priority list for what I need to be careful of for myself.
Yeah, it's interesting to say Gene Stealer Cult because there's not a lot of Gene Stealer Cult players in the UK. I mean, there's like Malik and Tom Lohman have been kind of crushing it with them recently, but I actually I don't tend to see them a lot there because they're actually quite a very expensive army to collect, and there's a lot of bodies on the ground. And you guys with your tower, you have a lot of guns, but you might not have enough to deal with that volume of bodies on the table popping up out of all the areas of the board. So would you say, because the new data set isn't being used, would you say your new list, like the one you're running now, is more favorable into elf factions like Harlequins, Eldar?
I would say it's that matchup has probably gotten a little bit easier, not because, well, not in a traditional fact that, even though planes have essentially been lost, which were great Alpha Strike 12 East Elder
Yeah.
because of their, they're made essentially brittle bone, like made of paper.
Yeah.
You do still have quite a lot of tools as the Tau player, with at least with how lists were in direction they'll be going in. So you still score really well. Tau against armies like Eldar traditionally do well against them because they're able to score. It doesn't take an entire unit to kill an Eldar unit, but it usually takes multiple Eldar units to kill a single Tau unit, is the way I see it.
Yeah.
And also points bump like on Swooping Hawks, which are probably the most egregious defenders in the matchup because you can't interact with them. And
Yeah.
Harlequins have been being hit with their invuln, makes your activations a lot easier when you play. So it's definitely still, wouldn't say in any shape or form easy or you know like a light breeze, but it's it's definitely one to look out for.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a lot of play there.
So let's go back to LVO. So when you decide to go like such a far distance from the UK to play Warhammer, does that come into your list build? Because you can't exactly lug around a huge magnetic case. Do you have to really think about what you actually want to take to the event like this? Because it's definitely a change, because you got to think about packing, you got to think about flying all your stuff over there, make sure everything isn't actually as compact in there. So do you think that comes into list building? Do you think you can't really take like mass horde lists or anything like that?
I wouldn't say that factors at all into my list building. If anything, I think because I'm going for like I'm going to such a far away place, right? Like it's a 10-hour
Yeah.
flight.
Yeah.
So it's a whole shift's worth of flights. But like I think for myself, don't think something like that really would really hold me back. I'm still believe I'm going to take what is the most powerful at the moment. What is what's most powerful combined with what I think I'm going to do the most well with and what I enjoy the most that
Yeah.
I'm better suited to and I have most practice with, regardless if it's 17 tanks or if it's 500 bodies. I don't really think that would stop me because at the end of the day, you're still packing models. It's going to take roughly the same amount of space. You can chuck 20 guardsmen into the same spot as a sentinel, for example,
Yeah.
etc. But yeah, I don't think that's something that would that's actually I've actually considered until you just brought it up that point.
Oh,
Really.
fair enough. Fair enough. So with obviously you play in the UK and you you're very aware of the normal terrain setup of the that we have at like the LGT and all of Zach's events. The Frontline Gaming Boys use a completely different set of terrain and terrain rules, and they seem to be a lot more open than what we kind of used to. So how I mean, just from looking at the mission pack and everything like that, how have you found kind of like planning for that event?
So, I mean, it's definitely very different. It's like it's more open in certain ways. I guess you could say the mid board is definitely more open. There's less to play in around that. Because at the end of the day, the terrain is dictated by two people, right? If your opponent doesn't want to put any terrain in the mid board, there won't be any terrain in the mid board unless you decide to put it there,
Yeah.
which then leaves your backfield open, but gives you better staging points. So it's a bit of a trade-off. Um, I would definitely say it's very different. If it's better or worse, who knows? I've had practice games on it. Um, feels all right. Definitely does feel a little bit, I guess you could say, lighter in some scenarios. But however, depending on the caliber of opponent that you'll play against, it will really alter that.
Yeah.
Because if you play against a good opponent, they'll put terrain in a way where maybe doesn't benefit them overly, but massively impacts you and how you play. So I definitely think it's not. It's very different. I think it's just very different matters with very different lists coinciding with one another compared to what we're used to.
Yeah. What I quite like with the UK tournament scene is that we're brutal. Like the list the list people run and the amount of damage output that we're running over here in the UK. I always am every matchup I'm just like, God damn, that is a lot of firepower, or God damn, that's a lot of resilience. And then you're coming over to the US and you're looking at all of these like from War Games Live. I tune into a lot, and they do a lot of the live battle reports. It List seems to be tweaked a little differently over there. So I do wonder if we kind of got an edge over the Americans here for being a bit more ruthless than they are. What do you think on that?
I mean, I would definitely say that at least from what I've seen, the type of lists that the UK brings is a lot more killy. Definitely, is one word to place it. There's less emphasis on utility over here. I'd like to still, the minimum amount of utility. However, I do think lists around here are more about I'm going to really hurt you, and can you handle it? And if the
Can
answer
you
is
handle it?
yes, then or you can take the pain. If you can't handle it, then it's like, oof, this hurts.
Yeah,
But I think that's also just a change in like different philosophies. Um, different matters because you also need to take into consideration that the US is also considerably larger than the UK.
it is.
Over
Yeah,
here in the UK, for us to get to a super major, it would be a 2-3 hour drive, right?
yeah,
And everybody over here can travel 2 to 3 hours. So a lot of, I like to say, top UK players play other top UK players, and and the trickle down effect, which I do believe happens,
yeah,
at a faster rate at that over there, just because of how intertwined the competitive community is. However, if you compare that to the US and how large the US is, you know, the Midwest has its own meta, the East, the South, etc. They all have their own metas, and you don't really have that trickle down effect, at
yeah,
least in person, as you do in the UK, just because of the sheer size of the US. I definitely think it's like I don't think everyone is either right or wrong. Who are we to say, right? We have, but at the end of the day, it's definitely difference in metas, and I think just difference in how I guess other people view top players and how
Yeah.
much they get into it, like into conversation. For example, like when we go to events, we always see top players like Vic and David and other like top players like Dice Down,
Yeah.
UVT boys or the Warmasters, etc. Always interacting and having conversations with everyone else, right? We're all just mates, all just having a laugh, speaking with one another, always exchanging ideas, and you really get to see how people play firsthand, which I do believe goes into that trickle down theory that I stated earlier.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and but I think because we're such a small country, we have, like you're saying, like a, I guess, higher level of like interaction with top players, because like every single month there's a ZAC event, and then if you're not going to a ZAC event, you go into these other events where people are going to be there, and like it's all, you always that interaction with this. Like at the tournament of the weekend, I bumped into one of your boys, James, who was at the tournament, and I've been bumping into him for years. Like at every event he's always there. So the same with you. Whenever I go to an event, you're there. We're always bumping in, saying hi and everything like that, and it's nice having a community like that. Right, so if you had to, what is your best and worst matchup? Okay, if you have to say it.
No, that's all right. I'm more than happy. So my best matchup, I would say, is somebody like, I guess again, not in a traditional sense. My best matchup is somebody who doesn't respect the output of the Tau, or either doesn't respect them or goes overboard and respects them too much and lets me score too well. That's my best matchup.
Passive,
In the non-traditional sense. In the traditional sense, I would love to play these. I don't know, something along those lines, really. And I'd say personally, my worst matchups, well, army-wise,
Emperor's Children, is that a worry for you because of the rematch?
I wouldn't say too much of a worry. It's I've had my rematch to Riptide's help. Thank you very much. But essentially, I mean, I definitely say an army that is able to apply pressure incredibly quickly.
Right.
Because it's essentially an army that can, like Kraken or Orcs or a very high pressure army.
Harlequin Boat Rush.
Yeah, like even that. I'm less so on FLG because it's because you're able to dictate the terrain, whilst you aren't able to do in UK events. But definitely an army that is able to rush me and apply that early pressure onto me is definitely one I'm worried about before I get all of my buffs up. Or an army that's able to passively outscore me without having to interact with me too much is also one that is worrying.
Yeah, that's Thousand Suns, isn't it? Where they kind of just do their own game.
Yeah, Thousand Suns to an extent, yeah, because they can always take banners. And then as the Tau player, Tau as fundamental weakness don't really have a way of interacting with a person's primary too well. But also Tau have the strength of not giving any secondaries, so it helps out, balance it out, right? Compared to other armies.
It does.
Yeah.
So,
but those are the main ones.
Yeah, I would agree with those because obviously playing a similar list to yours at the weekend, I kind of understood kind of where you're coming from with your designing of the list. Very good list. But so obviously for when Votann came out, everyone was like, oh my god, they're broken, you can't beat them, you can't this, can't that. They took a heavy nerf. They're not taking their final nerf yet because they're not using the new points update. But are those rail cannons a real? Are you scared of those with your Riptides?
The rail cannons, which ones? The ones on the fortresses?
On the fortresses, yeah.
I'm not scared of single shot weaponry that shoots Riptides for the sole fact that Tower have the tools such as savior protocols. You can make that all go away by just killing off a drone, which is at the end of the day something that you'll take, right? It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, fair enough. I found Votann to be interesting. Because I was playing Harlequin Boat Rush, I found it okay because I'm just in boats and you have to kill 6 or 7 boats before you really actually hurt me. But I could see the firepower that they have, and it is similar to Tau but slightly different. I got to say, if any of you haven't played Votann, respect the bikes more than the land fortresses, because they have a lot of shots.
They do.
So, what do you think the most popular armies will be at the top end of the tables?
That's a good question. Like, I honestly think the meta's in a pretty good spot at the moment. I definitely think Thousand Suns will be popular. Thousand Suns alongside Flamers, just because they have such a naturally high win rate at the moment.
Yeah.
Nids, Kraken, especially now the successor to Leviathan, are definitely another contender out there. Ravener is really good.
Yeah.
Zoan's really good. The Hive Tyrant is still amazing. They're going 20 inches, 25 inches, still charging, then running away. All very good utility, all very good damage, all very good defensive profiles as well. I also think Tower is going to be really popular.
I do see. Yeah.
So I'd probably say those three are the main ones. If an army, I think it's probably one of those three armies that more than likely going to win LVO. I could be wrong. No one expected Admech to win last year. They won last year.
No one.
Yeah, no, but it's true, right? So you never know what to expect. An amazing player might take complete off meta list that no one's thought of, take everyone by surprise, beat the Thousand Suns, Kraken, and the Tau. But I do think those are the current top three armies at the moment. Maybe Orcs. Orcs is definitely a dark horse in the race. I do see Orcs doing really well, especially Death Skulls. All obsec 5 for maybe smaller wounds, good into the current meta that no one would expect.
Yeah.
So
definitely
contender.
I was quite surprised from the tournament of the weekend where a Death Skulls guy, everyone was complaining about. I was like, why is everyone complaining about this army? And I looked at it, I was like, it's just Orcs. But then I watched the footprint it had on the board, and I was like, Jesus Christ, how is it this fast? And it was just up in the place, and he was taking Tau out, it was taking Votan out, it was taking like Marines, Eldar, Chaos, everything out, and he finished like 6 of them, and very impressed.
Was this Leicester?
No, this is at Twisted Warp at the weekend.
Twisted Warp. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it was. I agree. I think if people don't respect armies like Kraken, Thousand Suns, Tau, Orcs, and I personally think Chaos Spacemarines are still very strong. I think you're going to see a few float through to the finals, and let's hope it's you. Let's hope it's Tau, and I would love a final of Naseem on stream again, because that would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But
That'd be great.
yeah. But thank you for coming on, and I wish you the best of luck for LVO, and I'm sure that you'll be on stream a couple of times over the whole weekend, because there's going to be multiple people streaming on there, and yeah, let's hope you win it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm definitely going there for the win.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. And we're back with another guest. So this is Ben Jones from Vanguard Tactics. Say hi, Ben.
Hiya, guys.
Yeah, so Ben, you are currently 23rd in the world and number 15 in the UK.
Yeah, it's been a good season again.
It's been a good season so far, hasn't it? So you are another Warhammer expert, I would like to say, that we've got on. So we just had Naseem. We were just talking about that, what he expects from LVO and everything like that. But it'd be great to get your thoughts and things. So straight out the gate, how has the year been for you?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun again. I mean, our team's expanded, more new players. It's been good. I think the tournament scene in the UK is getting really good. There's like 40 or 50 people that you know at every single event.
Yeah.
It's a social thing more than anything as well now. You get to play Warhammer as well, but you wouldn't go if all those people didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Like every time I go to events with you, we're always going out for dinner and drinks afterwards, and it's always really good. And I think that's one of the big bonuses about the UK scene, because I was talking about it with Naseem, and we were saying we kind of agreed that the UK kind of meta is a savage one, and it's just bring guns or bring the biggest killing army.
Well, these tournaments are brutal now. Like, there's very rarely easy games anymore. Someone's got something brutal the other side.
Yeah, 100%. So, as you are going to LVO, what do you reckon what do you reckon the meta is going to be over there?
I think obviously, as we all know now, that we're not using the new balance slate or any of the new points or anything like that. I think it will be pretty much Tyrannids, Tau. I think there'll be a lot of Harlequins still.
Yeah.
I mean, they have potential as well. And there'll be a lot of Thousand Suns and there'll be a lot of Flamers. It'd be interesting to see how many Flamers are at the event.
Yeah, there's gonna be so many. Like, I was actually excited to see them not use a balanced data set, just to see the final nonsense and to go on, because there's a few armies we'll talk about later which I think which have potential to win. But yeah, I think it's gonna be quite interesting. So how have you found the mission pack and the terrain that's in the pack that's ready to use for players? How have you found it?
Well, I used the terrain similar last year at LVO as well. With player place as well, you can kind of adapt the board to suit you a bit more. And now that they've line of sight blocked the sort of one big ruin on each side, that gives you at least maybe one place you can hide.
Yeah.
On the board. But I mean, it's okay. It's different to the terrain we're used to playing on here.
Yeah, definitely, because in the UK we've got set terrain for all of like the big events, and a lot of smaller tournaments or GTs or smaller majors, they kind of copy and adapt it because it is very good. It's a good set of terrain, and you kind of can build armies to go with it. But with player place, it's completely different because it's whoever gets the first roll off to place the terrain. They can kind of dictate with that big ruin in the middle where kind of everything else goes.
Yeah. I think that's maybe a trap sometimes, and people then they slap the big one straight in the middle, then they have nowhere to hide themselves. So
yeah.
Sometimes I think sometimes placing the terrain can win the game, which is quite sad sometimes if people don't know how they're putting it down. But
yeah, definitely. I think
some of the ruins are a bit like we did some practice games weekend before last on the Gothic terrain set, and some of the big square ruins are like just impossible to hide because the angles you can cut, and you can't stand in the middle because then it's open. So it's kind of like really difficult to hide on some of the pieces. Whereas I like hiding with the kind of armies I play.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think there's going to be a lot of people taken by surprise with when they misplay the terrain against tower and things like and fast armies that can get line of sight?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too.
I've seen, and also armies of models that don't have any infantry, like all-night armies or something. If they put their ruins down wrong, they can just spend a whole game just blocked in the corner, just depending on what they're playing against.
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely think it's positive because it's not just doing the WTC or UKTC.
Oh, I like the player place terrain. I think it's good.
Yeah. So, what brings you to LVO? Because obviously it is a big tournament, and you can get all these tournament points like just playing in our local UKTC events. What actually makes you go, right, I'm actually going to go across, take a flight, pack all my models into a briefcase, and off I go? What makes you do that?
Well, I went last year for the first time with Steve, and we taught the seminar at the LVO. I helped him teach the Vanguard Tactics course there.
Yeah.
And you meet everybody that you chat to all over the year. And I've got like a couple of good friends in Vegas, Mike and Jake, who actually live in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And you chat to them all year on Messenger, and it's sort of the one time you get to see all these people. And our friend, obviously Dave, who does the podcast, he'll be there. It's just a good chance to see everybody, and I'm not even going to LVO. You could get enough points in the UK just by running. If you go to all of Zach's events, you pretty much can get an almost max score anyway.
Yeah.
It's just it's like season finale. It's nice to see everybody.
Yeah, I like that. It's turning into more because more and more people are going. I mean, there's a load of VT going this year, and a load of Warmasters are going as well. And it's kind of like becoming like a massive social, which I actually really like. And I think next year I'm gonna have to go because it's around my missus' birthday, and I think I can convince her next year. I think that would be a nice send off for the season.
You'll have to treat her and then say, "Look, I've got to disappear for 3 days while I play the LVO." So.
You just go see Grand Canyon. That's fine. Do
go
that.
to the spa. Go to the spa. You'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. So
last year I went all the way across, and round one gets drawn, and I walk to my table and I start putting my tray on the table, and to my left is James James from Warmasters. And with his orcs, and he's literally stood next to me. I was like, we've flown all the way across the world, and we've missed each other by a table. Like,
oh, it's so funny. It's so funny to think about that. Or if you pair into someone you would usually play in the UK. Like if we were on rival teams and then you paired into me, it's just like, oh wow, come all this way, and now we're gonna ruin ruin a friend's first game. God damn
it! It was really good last year.
So, for yourself, with the armies that you're thinking about going, so have you got 2 or 3 picks for the army you're going to take?
I have access to most of the armies in the game. I've got most I've been enjoying playing Ynnari this year. It's something a bit different. I like the Eldar stuff, and there's some cool stuff you can do with the Incarn and mixing Harlequins with Eldar. So I'll probably take that. That's what I've been playing all year. It's good fun. I mean, I got a Harlequins army. I could take pure boated Harlequins, which is very good still. And it's a last hurrah for that if you take that.
Yeah, it's also savage because I played it at the weekend, and it was I could playing 6 months of chaos and going back to a skill army. The first game I was a bit ropey, but then the second game I was just like, these guys are nuts good. Like, it's so easy to score.
Speed is king.
Yeah, speed is king. We've always said that when we were playing Drukhari as well. You just the fast armies always seem to win, and that's why Tau's so good. Because if they're a slow gunline army, it wouldn't work. But the fact that you can just redeploy almost instantly, going 18 inches, it's
the reach of the planes as well.
Yeah, it's the reach of the planes. Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. So what do you think is, for if you were to take Ynnari, what do you think the kind of best matchup possible game 1 would be?
Knights is always good, especially on UKTC. I think similar, as long as you can hide the D cannons. Knights is just every turn they just pop a knight, and then the Incarn starts bouncing around. So I quite like that game usually. Probably Marines at their current. What Marines are now is pretty good. Anything in power armor is okay.
Yeah, because I suppose there's Armor Contempt now still for LVO, so it'd be quite. I reckon there'll be a lot of Marine players anyway, because there will just be mass Marine players just because it's their army, and then people collect and want to go, and their mates want to go, and they convince them to go on. It's like, oh, I've only got this one army or whatever. So I can imagine they're going to be there in droves. How would you feel going into Emperor's Children, do you reckon?
It's a dicey game. I've played it about 7 times at tournaments. I've lost twice and won 5. So it's the flip on the turn that you go in with the Quins.
Yeah.
You need to not bounce, and if you don't bounce, you pick the whole Terminator unit up on the turn.
Yeah.
That's what the army can do.
Yeah.
But if you bounce, obviously then they're in front of your army and they do the same to you. So
it
goes both ways.
Yeah. So worst matchup, absolute. If you drew it, you were like, oh no, this is not going to be easy.
It's probably the Tau bombers. Like a very good Tau player playing it on. If you get like a more open LVO board with just like the square pieces, like the Necron City, where you can't really tuck into an owl, you just get blasted. It's like it's better if you can go first, because you can force them to put the planes in reserve, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then the game's a little bit, you can actually start to play it. But if they can just blast you, I'd say anything with mass guns. I think even I said Knights are an okay matchup before, but even like 13 Chaos Armigers with all chain cannons. If the board's really open and you can't hide, that's probably done as well.
Yeah, it's that's the thing. Like we just said about speed is king, but if they can get the angles in the wrong terrain at LVO, it's gonna be quite a dicey game. So what armies do you think will be most popular?
I think Tyrannids still.
Yeah. At the top tables, do you reckon?
Yes, I think there's some very good players who play Tyrannids, and the Tyrannids haven't had the. Obviously, they're still at almost full power. I mean,
Yeah.
on any board where you can run out 19, kill something, and then run back to almost utter safety, it's very strong. And then obviously spore mines just close up the board. I think Harlequins will do well.
Yes.
Again, there's a lot of good players. Our teammate Mike Porter's come in with his Harlequins. He's very, very good player.
Yeah.
They're a very good army, score very well. And then I think the other pick as well, Thousand Suns and Flamers. I think,
of course,
there's some very good players that we know. Our friends, Vic and David from Dice Down. They've both been running that in the UK with a lot of success, and they're very good players. And it's a very strong army. The adding the Flamers to Thousand Suns makes them just next level up. Yeah, it's very strong.
Yeah, it's an interesting one that kind of crept up because it was available around LGT and no one really ran it. No. And I think afterwards everyone was just like, oh, we can do this. Wow. Because
it's one of those things that sort of just I think Manny took it to an event, didn't he, in the USA, and once he'd broadcasted it to the world, I think everyone started looking at it.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing with the Manny list, because he kind of last year was because he's got a shop and he's got I guess he can 3D print or anything. I'm assuming he can, but because he's got access to all that, last year he kind of was like creating the meta with the orc buggies. He was the first one to have all of them. When it came to the racks, he had the first mass rack army. And then Thick City came around. He had that. He just was making the meta. So it's been quite interesting year for 40k, and it's quite nice that not going to LVO to wrap up the year, we've still got the current rules before we have this 6 months of absolute madness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I think the changes to especially the aircraft change is massive for me. The kind of armies I like to play with, stuff on foot. The fact that they're staying off the board to start with is brilliant. And I'm a person who used to run 9 Aldar planes, so
yeah,
I've had the time of running the aircraft myself. But yeah,
I suppose what is good as well about the LVO is because we're not using the old rules, that you won't come up against this nut job who's running, I don't know, just a spammable list of like towel breaches and boats, just being like, oh hi Ben, this is my first ever game. Oh, I go first, breaches, your whole army dies. Like,
I mean, I suppose that's added interest to it. It's a bit of excitement.
But I definitely feel before everyone works out what's going on with the nuts 6 months we're about to have and what the best armies are, it's nice to know that all your tournament experience for the last like 4 months, you can be like, I know what everything does, I know what the meta is, and you have control kind of what kind of comes ahead. And I think that's going to help you a lot in the event, which is going to be really interesting to watch. So if you're going to pick three lists, I know we've talked about T-Suns Flamers a lot because we know they're good and they're probably going to win it. If you could pick 2 more, what would they be? Two lists that are currently in the bouncing around the old meta.
The Tyrannid style Kraken build with the spore mines. I think that will go very far.
Yeah.
The one with the double hive tyrant that's been knocking around recently. It's a very strong army, and there's some very good players playing it. And then I was sort of saying to you before, maybe Tau with the right player.
Yeah.
Or I've got to throw Harlequins in as well because of the players playing it.
Yeah. The people who've got the balls to run the 9 boats, the 8 boats, fair play. Just do it. And it's an army which requires a lot of talent to pull off, even though people don't think it does, because they're still squishy. The skill toughness 3. I mean, they don't have 5 of pin buttons. They've got the 4 up still. But it's a lot to deal with. It's
a very good army.
Very good army. So if you were to give people advice who are watching this and are going to LVO and it's the first kind of big competition, what advice would you give them?
Like the first time they've been to, oh, just go and have some fun. It's a brilliant event. There's so many people there. You'll get to see everybody from, as I said, all over the world. Yeah, we see people that we only see once or twice a year because they live in America. So, it's like last time in the week before LVO, we were at Jake, who does Black Rabbit Gaming on YouTube.
Yeah.
Me and Steve were at his house playing Warhammer with him, just
chilling out.
just having fun. Yeah, it's just good fun.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, Ben, thank you for coming on. I wish you all the luck in the world for LVO, and I hope you win it. I hope you win it for Vanguard Tactics, because that is also my team.
I don't think I'll be winning it, but yeah, it'll be good fun.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll keep track of you like when you're playing, and I'm hoping for only good matchups the entire way. And you know what? Best of luck.
Yes, thank you, mate.
And here is our last guest. This is David Gaylard. Say hi, David.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
So we've just had Naseem and we've just had Ben Jones on from Vanguard Tactics and Warmasters. We have a dice down guy here now. So this fantastic Warhammer player is rank 4 in the world right now and 2 in the UK, and I'm guessing that means 2 in Europe as well. It's been a big year for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a crazy year. And look, the year is not finished yet. We've got Nottingham coming up, which is like 400 players out of the blue. And then we've got LVO after that. So I'm hoping I can creep up to like rank number maybe 2 after Nottingham. But 4 at the moment, this year's been crazy. I've been able to just focus on my game, play armies that I really loved and enjoyed. And I've been rewarded by putting in a lot of hard work as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to say, you've done an absolutely fantastic job this year, jumping, because you jumped around a bit with armies, because it's not like you just stuck with like Tyranids the whole time. You did try different pools, and it's been really good to see the high level of play and consistency that you've had at events. So what has been your favorite army that you played this year, do you reckon?
Look, I couldn't go. Oh, that's so tough. I think Leviathan Tyranids, just to be a bit of a cop-out, was probably my favorite army, just because I think I went 38-0 with it, maybe in only tournament games, but I know in practice I was something like 56-0 or something. But honestly, the army that I have the most fun playing is has actually been Thousand Suns and Flamers. I really love kind of intricate sequencing armies and turns and technical abilities, so I'm addicted to casting spells as well. So I really love that. Army the most personally. Yeah.
Well, that is it's quite interesting because going from your famous like warrior build that you took to so many events, and like you said, you did so well with it. Going from that, which kind of by the end of it, you probably got very like click and play, just like this goes here, this guy, I know where everything goes, and then changing to such a tricksy army that yes, it's very tough with the Armor of Contempt and all his dust. But you've also got to think about, you need to get all of these spells in the right word. Do I have enough Cabal points? Do I have this? Do I have that? How have you found the switch?
Yeah, like I'm the type of person that I just grind a lot of games. So the switch has been really rewarding actually, because it's highlighted for me a lot of areas where my play style, I had weaknesses. Not play style per se, but my analysis of strategy and how the game was supposed to be played optimally was very much suited to armies that I'd previously played. And I think I'm pretty well known as a very aggressive player, whereas Thousand Suns not necessarily like that at all. So what's been even better actually is Vic has been playing Thousand Suns and Flamers too, and actually sort of us collaborating on, actually I would play this matchup like this, and I would play, and him saying no, I would play like this, was a really big highlight in me actually realizing like, wow, okay, I really need to reevaluate how I think about matchups and strategies, and think about playing the more passive cagey game, which has been great development for me as a player as well. So it's kind of forced that necessarily, and it's been great. I've loved it.
Yeah, good. Well, so for those of you that don't know, what David's talking about is the menace in the soon to no longer be meta, and it's a Thousand Suns army with the added on Tzeentch demons, and those flamers just ruin people's days. they bring to the table which Thousand Suns don't. Yes, they can soul reap things off the board, they can have all of these very high AP shots. The one thing they do lack is the reliableness of broken flamers.
And the speed is a big part of them too. Like,
just
having an infantry model that can move 12 is really big for the army because it shores up your secondaries. It gives you dynamic play, and the army is already super dynamic. So actually having like a 12-inch advance and shoot platform, obviously we all know the output's great as well. But honestly, if the output went to like 2 plus D3, like I would still definitely play them. They really complement the army really well in a lot of synergies, and of course you get the fabled double cast, so you get to cast Bolt of Change twice or Infernal Gateway twice, which is really, I mean, they're the best spells in the game. So being able to use them twice with another Cabal ritual in addition to that, to either boost the power level or do more damage on that spell is just even better. So no, it's a great army. It's really well rounded. And it's certainly an army that rewards knowing the ins and outs of everything. Every single game that I've lost with that army, I've always felt I could have won if I'd done something different. And that's, I think, as a top level player, that's really what you want to see in an army, because you think, actually, you know, if I just get better and better and better, there's actually no way I can lose almost anything. So yeah, it really rewards everything. It's super well rounded. It's obviously really powerful as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it is the menace in the meta at the moment. And personally, it's my pick to win LVO because I think it has a leg up on all of those Tau builds out there. So because you can get rid of the drones, you've got the spells to get rid of the riptides and everything like that. So I do think it's you're gonna, if you are gonna be running that, I think it's gonna be you're gonna be good stead going into that. So what is so appealing to you as a high level player about LVO?
LVO. Yeah, so I actually went for the first time last year. I had a bit of a magical run. I was top seed going into day 3. I dropped like 20 points across 6 rounds playing Crusher Stampede, just like annihilating everyone. This is back before I kind of had won like any tournaments or anything like that. I was kind of a nobody as well. And so, you know, it's just such a blast. You know, the best part about LVO, if I had to pick one thing, is the international community, seeing everyone together, catching up with so many people from across the pond, people that, you know, I either play online or I chat to and bounce ideas off. Actually seeing them in real life is great. And just, you know, hanging with everyone. It's a good vibe. You know, the conference room is really nice to play in. So yeah, I think just meeting everyone. Obviously, it's special because it's 1,000-ish players, and you know, all the eyes are on it per se. And it's kind of a weekend where no other events are going on, so everyone is zoned in on how every single person is doing, all their favorite players are doing, and then event on BCP and spamming refresh for the updates and stuff. Yeah,
that's the whole time it's going to be on, because I'm not going. I'm just going to be checking all of like you UK players, just because I want it to come home this time. Like football's never coming home, but Warhammer might be coming home, and maybe we can make this maybe like a meme on the way up to it, because I feel our players in the UK are savages, and I think we need some respect with the caliber of players that are going to that event as well.
For sure. Yeah, so we had, I think we've got more players going this year than last year as well. So last year, I think it was Manny, myself, and Malik. This year, we've got me, Vic, Naseem, Mike Porter is going, Brian Seep is also going. So, 2+ players at equal skill levels. So we've got even better chance of doing it this year as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like the amount of, like, Warmasters have so many people going.
They've got so many going. Warmasters they're gonna overtake Dice Down for the first time. I think there's gonna be a new crowning of the UK top rated team this year. And I think Warmasters absolutely, if they take it over, absolutely deserve it. Because I know they've even got like 10 players going to Nottingham as well, and they're sneaking Innes Wilson in there as well somehow on their scoring.
I know.
I don't know what's going on.
I know. Naseem was telling me about it. I was like, how do you get that? How do you swindle that? Fair enough.
But they've been super active. So, I mean, it's cool that they're coming down as a huge team to go and play at LVO as well. Because that's the cool thing about it too, is the Americans really have a kind of foothold on us in terms of the team environment. I think that comes culturally speaking from their sports background as well. Like they have so many teams, team shirts, everyone holds together and stuff like that. It's really great kind of cross culture that they've got there working for 40K as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, because they have a lot of people who it's War Games Live, who's the big channel that kind of goes every single weekend.
For sure.
And they have so many different streaming platforms, and they follow it. We don't really have someone who does that.
Because so I will bunt in, because you mentioned War Games Live. So actually, Anthony, Vanilla, and myself are going to be doing a stream game for charity on the Thursday. Now, this is the first time I'm announcing. We're working on it in the background, but in our podcast, we had a bet going for a steak dinner, and then so we're doing an exhibition match with War Games Live, albeit fingers crossed it'll go ahead. with Joe. And so we're going to be raising money for, I think, K9's charity in Las Vegas. So if you're there, you want to get some action before the whole thing starts, Anthony and I will also be playing a game for to test out the stream, raise some money for charity, and have a good laugh as well.
That is honestly amazing.
Should be good fun, yeah.
This is why you're on. You're just an amazing Warhammer player and an amazing guy as well. Right, doing a charity event with Anti-Vanilla. That is amazing. So when LVO's on, make sure you check out on the Thursday. You watch David play. You see what all of his nasty list is all about, and then you can also donate in chat to a good cause. That's fantastic. I think that's really good that that's going on. Especially at such a big event, so that I'm hoping you'll get a lot of viewers, which would be good. Yeah. So I forgot where we were.
What am I going to bring? That's going to be the next question.
There you go. What are you going to bring?
Oh man, it's been a real rocky road. I'll be honest with you, because obviously, if context of the viewer that hasn't perhaps been keeping up with the not drama but new changes with LVO. There's been a big debate on whether to let the new arksofomen in with this points and the slate. And as a competitive player, obviously we're very in tune with what's going to be going on and anticipating and practicing for this, that perhaps will be in or not in, depending on what changes. So it's been a bumpy ride between trying to figure out what will be good if the points and data slate are in and not. And I'm still not 100% decided. I have got the choice between two armies. I'm going to be either playing Tyranids or Thousand Suns. Yeah. Now, the pros and cons for each one are pretty straightforward for me. I really enjoy playing Thousand Suns. I just love the army so much. It's just such a blast to play. And it's obviously very strong. But LVO has kind of merged, and Frontline Gaming have released a rules pack that is, to be honest with you, kind of unfavorable for the army. They've merged into the WTC rule pack in a lot of ways. So you can charge through ruins and be kind of in place. Basically, you cannot block people from charging you inside ruins. And then, in addition to that, they've also ruled you cannot double cast off a Tzeentch demon. So so that's kind of two big parts of the army, because being able to not charge, the army's not great in combat, and the double casting of Bolt of Change or Gate of Infernal Gateway is very powerful in the army. So that, and then there's one mission right at the end. So in LVO, we play 6 rounds, and the last round is the Scouring. And the Scouring, this is so that determines if you win to go into the top 8 or the Shadow round. The Scouring is not very good for Thousand Suns. It is basically, it's long ways, so the opposite of Dawn of War. There's 5 objectives right in the middle of the board. It kind of favors really aggressive armies. So there's 3 kind of big things going against Thousand Suns in that one, if you look at it from a purely competitive standpoint. And then, so if it's not Thousand Suns, I've got Tyranids, Kraken. And on the flip side, Kraken got buffed because you can charge through walls now, which is big because you're playing random bases, which is great. It means that you can always charge. And in addition to that, round 6 is the Scouring. And to be honest with you, if you have 8-man Ravenous, you can charge 20 inches. You can hit any objective on the battlefield. So, I mean, honestly, if I'm just going to go and try my best and just finish off the season as well as I can strategically, I'm going to play Tyranids. But even as you were talking about Thousand Suns before, I was sort of thinking, oh man, maybe I should play Thousand Suns.
Oh, they're so good.
Yeah, it's tough, It's a balance between wanting to do really well and having fun. But I think ultimately for me, I'll probably enjoy it regardless if I'm there. So doing well, playing Kraken. I think I'll probably go with Kraken. And I think I'm ranked 1 Tyranid player at the moment. And John, I think, is probably going to be playing Kraken there maybe too. So, maybe I could win rank 1 Tyranids as well, which has never been a focus for me, but it wouldn't be a bad side gig, I suppose.
Yeah, no. I think they're both strong options. They're polar opposites of each other. One is hyper aggressive and super fast. The other kind of just sits there, scores points, and is super aggressive when it needs to be, with the teleports and the massive man mortal. It's almost like a keep away game. They're like, no, you stay away whilst I score all the points, and then Kraken is just like, no, I'm going to eat you. That's it.
Yeah. One has fantastic secondaries, and the other has no secondaries basically whatsoever. So it's tough. I mean, I think the Scouring, that mission 6 at the end is really tipping it for me. Just because it's so obviously the tournament gets progressively harder, but round 6 should be your toughest round. And if you're playing an army that favors round 6, then hopefully I can win my round 1 to 5, regardless of kind of how it's going, just on player skill. And then round 6, I can get a good edge on a good army as well.
Yeah. If I was to pick and I was making this choice, I would probably stick with Thousand Sons because I think they're better into more matchups than Tyranids, because Tyranids still get shot. They still get shot. They're not as durable as they used to be, especially not with the as it's not a Leviathan build. But if as it's player placed, you might be able to get favorable terrain. So it all depends. But I personally think go with the one that I think everyone thinks is the strongest, which is Thousand Sons, because I think it helps versus Tau as well, and I think there's going to be a lot of Tau out there.
You think there's going to be a lot of Tau?
Yeah, I seriously do. I seriously.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's rough, isn't it?
Yeah. It's tough, isn't it? Like, and that just goes to show, I think, like, I guess, that goes to show kind of the meta that we're in right now. I think the meta that we're in right now is great. And I've always said for the last couple of months, it's been really fantastic. And just as a side note, I think the meta with the new points and slate is really interesting as well. So props to Games Workshop. I think they've done a great job, and they're getting better. But it just goes to show, like, there's a lot of potential out there, isn't there? Like, I need to have games this week because, guys, list submission is on the weekend of Nottingham, so it's this weekend. So I need to get some games in tomorrow night, which is basically, and the night after, and test Thousand Sons if it's no double casting and see how it goes. Really, if I can still win games with no double casting, I think it's an interesting option. Yeah.
I honestly think I honestly think it probably has. Yeah, I'd say because of the durability, because of the armor contempt still in there. I think that works for me if I was to make it. But you've got a huge decision coming up. But this goes on to our next one, which is what meta do you expect at the LVO? So give me 3 armies that you think are at the top, and then 3 in the mid tables.
Yeah, so in the top, definitely it's Tau, Tyranids, and Thousand Sons, I think, as we went through. And then I think you probably won't play a top tier player on that army in the early rounds. But what I do expect is probably quite a bit of Knights. I think Knights on player-based terrain in the United States, I think are probably going to be pretty popular.
Yeah.
I also think Emperor's Children is going to be, Chaos Space Marine variants, probably very popular in the mid-tables as well. Those are very good armies for people just to kind of mash in your face, steamroll people and stuff like that. And then, what's another one army? What kind of did I lose to? Probably Demons, actually, if I was being honest.
Yeah, they're quite popular. Very popular.
Yeah. Probably those 3 armies. Why? What would you think? Have I missed out any that you would be like, thinking about going into?
The Harlequins.
Yeah, Quins, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's going to be quite a few boat parties going on in there, even though I kind of think they're on the way out of actual 40k. I mean, yet to actually play the matchup. I'm tempted to play the Iron Hands matchup next week just to see if it can still dance about, because it still hides, it still comes out with all the fusion, still comes out with all the mortals.
Yeah.
In
fact, in the new slate, and this is how we just can't help but talking about it, but they did go to the 4-up from the 4-up and run to the 5-up. But honestly, the rest of the army was basically untouched. And the rest of the army is the backbone of the army, right? Like the boats deliver the troops kill stuff, and they get killed afterwards, right? If you got 4-up or 5-up, does it really matter at that point? And actually, the relics, the Shadowseer Aura relic, went from a ability to an aura, right? So you got -6-inch range again, which in a shooting meta is perhaps even super relevant. So I think Quins I think people wrote them off, including myself early on. And I spoke to some players that played them a lot and said, actually, I think Quins got off really well in this. So it might be a good army for you to stick on, man.
I in one of the 40k chats spammed straight away, which is like, Quins are dead. I'm selling my army, and then Jay Middlecoat straight away was just like, I'll paint you something for the army. I'll paint you a lot of skulls, and I was like, oh yeah, definitely, I'll take that. But then the more I've been thinking about it, the more I've been list building, I'm like, maybe they're a 50% win rate army.
I think maybe better than that. I think they might be one of the top 5 armies personally. But
well,
that's all going to be proven.
Yeah, they've got the Death Jester back, which is back to be ridiculous.
He's really good.
We'll see. He's a bit more expensive now, but I just remember being on the Hellstorm Wargaming stream, just laughing at how this Tau guy tried to alpha strike me, and I was just like, and I lost a boat, and I was like, now your army's dead, and then the Death Jester himself picked up like a whole squad of something, then they were the great days. They were the great days. The 9 Void Weavers, that was fun.
No, don't speak that heresy on this.
So go on. What is your dream matchup round 1?
Look, if I'm playing Thousand Suns, I just want to dream matchup round 1. I'd be like to take on Jack Harpster round 1, mate.
Oh yeah, you fancy
He's playing Tau. I'll take him on round 1. There you go.
You could do everyone a favor. Knock out Jack Harpster, then we can all sail through.
Yep. And then my boy Vic will be able to win the whole ITC. So I'll happily take Jack Harpster round 1. You heard it right here. If you want to organize a Jack, I'm all for it. So
team player, you're a team
throw
player.
the gauntlet down. That's right, I'll win anyway. But no. Yeah, honestly, just something nice to warm up with. Like the really cool part about Thursday game is like get to come in, play some games. I'll also be at the convention playing games on Thursday as well, because that's what I like to do at Vegas, play with the terrain, get some games in with my friends. And that's a really good way to just warm up. Just anything really. I think it's a good start to the game. Maybe something like Death Guard, you know.
Oh, sure. That's always a lovely matchup, Death Guard.
Yeah, just get used to casting my spells, killing them, you know. And then go.
So worst matchup, would it be the mirror?
Worst matchup. Yeah,
if you're thinking about points, the mirror could be quite difficult.
Yeah. The mirror is difficult for points. I think in terms of worst matchups, obviously hitting my teammates is bad. Hitting my teammates sucks throughout any part, because I played my teammate Malik round 5 last Vegas we played.
Yeah.
So yeah, mirror matchup's not great because it'd put me in probably a stressful position right from the get-go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But if you had to pick an actual faction to face and it would be the worst, what would you pick?
I'd probably go. I don't want to play Kraken Nids round 1. Especially if you got the Harpies. That is not a great matchup. The only benefit I have is that I know the army inside out. But I mean, still at that rate, I got to hope that they don't play the game how they're supposed to play it, and I've got to catch them off. So hopefully I don't get that, because I think it's Dawn of War probably round 1, right? Abandoned Sanctuaries probably. So yeah, not cracking on Dawn of War.
Quick. Well, I suppose the good thing is with Thousand Suns, you do have stratagems you can use. Like Soul Reap is perfect for picking apart the big squads, and you have the AP. You have the AP, which is kind of a nice get out of jail free card with that. And you might end up going for Kraken Nids, and I'm sure you're going to smash either one. And then you probably hate the Thousand Suns matchup round 1. So
exactly right. Yeah.
So what is your, can I ask you, because I asked Naseem and Ben Jones this, so if viewers, I've asked this question twice now. So I personally think the UK meta is a savage one. We have a lot of savages out there, always playing very hyper aggressive armies, very killy armies, but that score a lot.
Yep.
How do you think that compares to the US? Do you think they're ready for us?
I think personally, the UK meta is a lot harder than the United States meta. Trying to be non-biased and objective, I think the UK meta is pretty savage. Like if you're everyone at the event nowadays comes with really solid lists. Like every mid-table list is like, oh yeah, this meta list, that meta list, blah blah blah. Right? I can't remember the last time I played against something like really wacky. And everything is basically like, if you make a kind of big mistake, then you're kind of locked out of the game. So I think playing aggressive in tournaments is a good idea as well. The trick is to know when to play aggressive and when not to play aggressive. So I think the guys over here in the UK are going to be well tuned to playing on the United States. The main advantage they have, of course, is that they get to play with Frontline gaming terrain, and we don't. So if they were to come across the LGT, which you guys should come across the LGT, come on. They have the advantage of just being able to buy a UK TC terrain set and then know that that's exactly what they're going to play. We don't have the advantage of that. The best we've got is some mock-ups on TTS. So that's why it's even more important to come on Thursday, practice on the terrain beforehand as well. So, I think the people in the UK that are going, some of the best players we could send. So I think we're going to be ready, and I think we're going to catch little people off by surprise. Yeah, should be good.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm rooting for the UK players because, like I said before, I want it to come home. What's the prize for coming first?
So there's no prize. I don't think there's a prize for coming first at LVO. And this is actually one of my favorite things about the game, is that there are no prizes, more or less.
Yeah.
I really like that. It's just bragging rights.
Yeah.
And bragging rights in good times, really. And so I think overall ITC, there's like a cash prize, I think, for. So yeah, I mean, overall LVO, if you win LVO, you know, that's something that you're going to treasure forever, right? It's one of the capstone events that you can win. I think, you know, it goes like winning a GT, winning a major, winning a super major, and then winning, you know, LGT, LVO, WTC perhaps as well. Those are the kind of 3 outliers out of the normal super major kind of esque formats.
Yeah, and it's I think just being at that event, and even if you get a best in faction at that event, or if you make it to the top cut, I think that's an honor by itself, because the standard and how many players there are. It's over 1,000 players, and you know, it's gonna be a wild ride that whole weekend. But I think you're gonna do great. So last couple of questions, and then we'll wrap it up. But Naseem and Ben both agree, Tyranids, Thousand Suns, Tau, the top 3 to potentially take the crown. Do you think there's any surprises that can shift those 3?
Yeah, look, I picked Mike Porter to win the Coventry 3-day major. So I think I'm going to pick Mike Porter on Quins to do an upset if there was going to be an upset. Sisters also might be good, you know. So, you know, planes can kind of take them off, but you can get a bit of a weird run perhaps. So I think, you know, Sisters, maybe a Knight in there somewhere, although, you know, there are quite a bit of Tau. But I think Knights could do somewhat well. Play terrain is really interesting one, and Scouring is very good for Knights too, right? So maybe a Knight gets a good run, hits the Scouring, goes first, and then just floods the entire board, denies all the primary on the Scouring, and then is able to win after that, perhaps.
And I have noticed in every single one of these interviews, no one has said Votan.
Oh no, Votan are good. Man, sorry, it's hard to keep track of all these things.
There's so many, isn't there?
No, Votan is quite good actually. I think you're very much right in mentioning that Votan could be the upset as well. Once again, I know I talk about it a lot, but the Mission 6 Scouring is great for Votan as well on the pressure builds. So yeah, and Votan have a good matchup into Tau, and a pretty solid matchup into Tyranids as well, player dependent. So Votan destroy Tau and have a pretty good matchup into Tyranids. They get smashed by Thousand Suns, and especially Thousand Suns players that knows what they can do.
Just for Magnus all day.
But I think that Thousand Suns are not going to actually be that popular overall. I think there'd be myself, Vic coming from UK, maybe a couple of players in America playing them at the top levels. Apart from that, you know, it is an army you need to be a top player on to really get heavily rewarded with it. So I don't think they will be seldom many players playing that, but those that do perhaps will do a lot better than they should. Yeah,
I totally agree. So this is it. This is the end. But before we go, I would love for you to tell everyone about your podcast.
Oh, yeah. So Vic and Vic obviously ranked 1 in the ITC right now, and an absolutely amazing and accomplished player, really good friend of mine as well. And then myself, we host the 40K Fireside podcast. We haven't uploaded something for about 2 weeks because we've been taking time off, and that's just how we are. We're just completely honest about how we play the game. We talk about the UK meta and competitive Warhammer in general, and then talk about things that are changing in the game. And we're just honest about how we see the game. We don't hold any punches, and we just take the best list in the game usually, try and win, and that's what we're about.
Yeah, and I can vouch for it. It is a fantastic podcast, and you should all listen to it and subscribe. Make sure you're always there for when they get uploaded, and you're straight there to listen, be one of the first listeners. But David, thank you so much for coming on this and giving me such a good chat about LVO, and I wish you the best of luck for the entire weekend.
Thank you for having me on. It's been great talking again.
Yeah, and so everyone, before you go, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button, give me a like, share it with your friends, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.